The year is 410 AD. A British townsman stands at his doorway, holding a letter, the last message ever sent by a Roman emperor to this island. It says only this: look to your own defenses. That's it, that's all. 400 years of rule. 400 years of roads, bathhouses, temples, and an entire way of life gone, undone by a single sentence. People who had called themselves Roman just the day before, who spoke Latin, who bathed in heated pools, who raised their children on Roman law and Roman custom. All of them woke up to find that no one was coming to save them. Within 100 years, a city like London, once home to 30,000 people, would stand completely empty asterisk. Frogs would live in its bathhouses. Grass would grow through its streets. And the people who came after would look at these broken buildings and assume they must have been built by giants, because how could mere men have ever raised something so vast? This is the story of a civilization held together by barely 40,000 soldiers, ruling an entire island. It's the story of general after general making the exact same fatal mistake, a mistake that shattered Britain every single time it was repeated. And it's the story of a final collapse that came not with a single battle, not with one dramatic blow, but slowly, quietly, the way sand slips through a closed fist. This is the fall of Roman Britain. In the 1st century BC, Rome was the most powerful state on earth. Its legions stretched across Europe into Greece and Turkey, along the coast of North Africa. But there was one place Roman armies kept failing to take: Britain **. Julius Caesar attacked twice, in 55 and 54 BC, and came home empty-handed both times. Augustus planned 3 separate invasions, and each one fell apart before it began. Then came one of history's stranger episodes. Emperor Caligula gathered 200,000 men on the coast of Normandy, ready to cross the Channel, and at the last moment ordered his soldiers to abandon the invasion and collect seashells from the beach instead. To the Romans, Britain was a mystery wrapped in fog, dangerous, alien, unknowable. Caesar himself wrote that the people there painted their bodies blue with woad to look terrifying in battle, wore their hair long, and dressed in animal skins. It was Emperor Claudius who finally broke through, landing 4 legions, 20,000 men, on the coast of Kent in 43 AD. After 2 days of brutal fighting, unusually long for the era, British resistance was crushed at the River Thames. And once victory was secured, Claudius himself arrived, bringing with him a war elephant shipped all the way from Africa. To Britons who had never seen such a creature, the sound of its footsteps and chains alone must have ended any thought of further resistance. But as Roman forces pushed north, into what is now Scotland, they ran into people who refused to bow: the Picts and the Meatii **. They had no cities, no forts, no fixed armies, just mountains, bogs, and a style of fighting that today we'd call guerrilla warfare. For the first time, Rome understood that some things simply could not be conquered. So they stopped, and they built a wall, Hadrian's Wall, 135 kilometers of stone running coast to coast, still the largest Roman structure ever built. It wasn't just a barrier of rock. It was an admission that even Rome's power had a limit. Once Britain was subdued, Rome poured its civilization into it. Towns like London and Colchester transformed within a few decades into glittering cities, not unlike how Dubai or Singapore look today compared to photos from 40 years ago. Roman governors, officials, and wealthy settlers moved in. Their villas were decorated with mosaic floors, private baths, even underfloor heating. Roads were laid, markets opened, and gold, silver, lead, and above all tin a metal essential for making bronze, flowed out of Britain toward the rest of the empire. But behind all this shine sat an uncomfortable truth: Britain never paid for itself. Far more money flowed into the island than ever came back out. It was an expensive province, held together purely by military force. And this is where a pattern begins, a mistake that would be repeated again and again, and that would ultimately decide Roman Britain's fate. Defending Britain required roughly 40,000 troops, about one-eighth of the entire Roman army. Whoever commanded that force automatically became one of the most powerful men in the empire. And every single time the imperial throne came up for grabs, every time an emperor died or looked weak, Britain's governor would think the same thought. I command this many men. Why shouldn't I be emperor? The first to try it was Clodius Albinus in 193 AD, a Tunisian nicknamed for his unusually pale skin. He loaded all three of Britain's legions onto ships and sailed for Rome. 2 years of war later, he was defeated at the Battle of Lugdunum. He fell on his own sword and his head was paraded on a spike. But it was Britain that paid the real price. With no army left behind, Picts, Scoti and Saxon raiders poured in and the province fell into chaos. You'd think that would have taught everyone a lesson. It didn't. 100 years later, a general named Magnus Maximus made the identical mistake, marching his entire army toward Rome in 383 AD to claim the throne for himself. And once again, Britain was left defenseless. The damage was so severe that the last Roman coin ever found in Wales dates to that very year. After that, there's no trace of Roman authority there at all. Then in 407 AD, a common soldier named Constantine III, chosen mostly because his name matched that of the great Emperor Constantine, who had once been crowned in York, did the exact same thing. Took the army, sailed for the continent. This time, Rome had had enough. In 410 AD, Emperor Honorius sent word that Britain would now have to defend itself. The last Roman troops were withdrawn for good. But before that final withdrawal, something happened in 367 AD that exposed exactly how far Rome's power had fallen. An event historians call the Great Barbarian Conspiracy ****. Soldiers stationed on Hadrian's wall, worn down by cold, hunger, and boredom, mutinied and opened the border. Picts poured through. But this wasn't an isolated raid. At the very same moment, Scoti crossed from Ireland, Saxons landed by sea, and Franks struck the coast of Gaul, almost as if the whole thing had been coordinated. Roman generals were killed, towns burned, slaves fled their masters, and entire units of soldiers deserted, turning to banditry in the very land they were meant to protect. For 2 years, there was no real law in Britain. Rome's best general, Theodosius, was finally sent to restore order, but the damage had already been done. After that night, the fear that Rome's name once inspired never fully returned. What followed 410 AD wasn't a single catastrophe. It was a long, quiet unraveling that took generations. When Rome stopped collecting taxes, it also stopped paying the officials, road keepers, and garrison soldiers who had run the province. Those men didn't disappear. They simply started demanding food and money from local people directly, in exchange for protection. These men became the earliest local warlords, the seeds of early medieval Britain. London's port fell silent. Its streets emptied. The great public baths, once a symbol of Roman pride, filled slowly with silt because no one was left to clean them. Iron became scarce and expensive, so people stopped sealing coffins with nails and stopped fitting hobnails to their boots, small details that quietly reveal an entire economy collapsing. Perhaps the saddest sign of all, people simply stopped writing ****. Not a single document survives from this period. Latin faded from everyday speech, surviving only inside churches. People forgot their Roman identity altogether and began adopting the customs of the newcomers, the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes. London, once home to 30,000 people, stood completely abandoned by the end of the 5th century. Grand villas collapsed, their mosaic floors cracking under fallen roof beams. Frogs and pond weed took over baths where the wealthy once soaked. The only visitors left were scavengers, picking through the ruins for scraps of iron like looters combing through a ghost town. York, where Constantine the Great had once been crowned emperor, eventually sank beneath the seasonal floods of its own river. And the newcomers who arrived, the Saxons, were so unsettled by these ruins that they deliberately built their own settlements far away from them, convinced the old stones were cursed or haunted. This is very likely where Britain's legends of giants came from. To ordinary people, it seemed impossible that mere humans could have built anything so vast. Surely, they thought, this must have been the work of some older, greater race. Part 6. A poem that is itself a ruin. Centuries later, sometime in the 8th or 9th century, an unnamed poet wandered through the ruins of the city of Bath. He wrote a poem in Old English that we now call asterisk, the ruin. Fittingly, the poem itself was later damaged by fire. Its words break off mid-sentence, just like the crumbling stone it describes. He wrote of walls shattered by fate, of towers fallen, of roofs collapsed, the work, he believed, of giants who had vanished long ago. He never knew who had actually built those walls. To him, they were simply the last trace of some lost and magnificent world, now reduced to stone and silence. Final thought. The story of Roman Britain leaves us with an uncomfortable lesson. No civilization, however powerful, survives on strength alone. If its people never feel truly bound together, if its power sits in the hands of too few, if its entire economy depends on outside support, sooner or later, it hollows out from within. Roman Britain wasn't lost in one great battle. No single invader brought it down. It was the ambition of 3 different generals, the slow decay of an entire economy, and the shifting winds of politics far away in Rome that, piece by piece, brought the whole structure crashing down on itself. And maybe that's the most unsettling part of all. Civilizations rarely end with an explosion. Sometimes they simply go out asterisk, like a lamp running dry of oil, while the people living through it keep believing tomorrow will be better, right up until they're standing in the ruins themselves, asking, asterisk, who built this place? End of script.